So I decided to try to change the Acorn from the inside. Now, at our next meeting, it was December of 2007, so I got up with this new courage and I was like, you know what? We should really start reaching out to the middle class. And they looked at me and they was like, that's a great idea, Anita. Why don't you write something up and send it to us? And I think I actually got put on the what would be called the Acorn watch list after that one. Because what I realized is that they did not want to reach out to the middle class. They didn't want people like you and you in the organization, because as Michelle Malkin always says, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So when you have, yes, and when you have people paying attention, they can't do those type of subversive activities because they're not going to fly. So not realizing it, I think Acorn started to realize at the same time I did that I really wasn't a fit for that organization. And that's why in July of 2008, now how many of you guys heard about the embezzlement scandal with Acorn? Good. His brother embezzled over $1 million, sometimes people say more, and the New York Times broke the story. And as anybody will tell you, before that time, no one was covering stuff about Acorn. If you tried to go up against them, they were going to squash you like a bug. They had tried, other employees that were organizers had tried before, and they had been sued and silenced. But this time, we had a mainstream media outlet paying attention. So I contacted Stephanie Strom of the New York Times as a confidential source, and I began to give her documents and records and emails and everything she would need to show that not only was Acorn committing massive voter registration fraud, but they also had done things that would constitute prosecution under the RICO statutes. But every time, if you go back and you look up Stephanie Strom's articles from summer of 2008, every single article was more watered down than the next. It almost seemed like they were trying to provide cover for Acorn. So I started not to trust her a little bit. From July of 2008 to October of 2008, none of those stories ever got printed the way they were. So being a liberal, this is the old gray lady now. What are you gonna do when the old gray lady is not listening to you? I started looking around, I'm like, who's getting it, who's getting it? And so I contacted Michelle Malkin. Now, yes. Now, this was a big step for me, because if you guys, being a liberal and reading Michelle Malkin's blog can make your head explode. So she kind of terrified me a little bit, but that was like my, just in case things don't go well, I could have that, there. So I contacted her and I sent her an email just to let her know what was going on. But at the same time, I was still working with Strom. So on October 23rd, 2008, after working from July to October, I was at home with my daughter, who was 2 at the time. She got into my makeup. So I immediately picked her up and was dropping her in the tub and scrubbing her, and I heard my phone ring. Usually when Stephanie calls, I automatically pick up. But this time, because I was in the bathroom with my daughter, I let it go to voicemail. When I went back and I played that voicemail, it was Stephanie Strom telling me that her editors had told her to stand down from the story. She was coming to D.C. that day, 2 days from that day, to get information regarding the Obama donor list, collusion between the campaign, Acorn, and Project Vote, and she had independently verified meetings between the campaign and Project Vote outside of myself. So I called her back, and she told me that it was not the policy of the New York Times to print a game changer that close to the election for either side. Exactly. And if you remember, they printed a story about John McCain having an affair with an anonymous source. And there I was, willing to come forward, be identified, and they had a list that they could prove could not have been downloaded from the internet because it included donors that Obama had never turned over to the FEC. So I went to CNN. They did a 3-tape interview that never aired. ABC News and Martha Raddatz had the story and was able to prove the validity of the list, and they would not touch it. Everyone provided cover for Obama before the election. The only people that would cover the story was Fox News. Honestly, That's where programming comes in. That's how good the liberals are. Because I was terrified of Fox News. I thought, okay, they finally found that one black person that's going to come on TV against Obama, and they're going to put me in a loop like this before election, so I wouldn't go anywhere near them. I was scared they were going to use me, and they weren't going to tell the real story. Because keep in mind, I was still a liberal at this point. So I wanted to expose Acorn so Obama could do his job. And I still voted for him, thinking that he was a great guy. That's how idealistic I was. But at the time, I said no, I would not go to New York. I wouldn't talk to them. I did do an interview with Laura Ingraham, and I was surprised because I thought she was going to be evil. Once again, when you're on the left and all of your friends are leftists and your parents are leftists, you don't hang around with other people, and you only get the view of folks as what you see on TV and how they present it to you. And you guys are seen as racist, angry people. Every time they get a chance, that's the image that they push out there on TV. They try to find the one crazy Tea Party person, get them to say something stupid, and then they make sure that they play it on the black stations, and you see that, and you're thinking, okay, these people are nuts. So I didn't expect any type of support to come from the right, which was kind of stupid because I should have realized that while all of these liberals were covering and carrying water for Obama, they were the only ones willing to actually get the story out there. So, and if you go to my blog, I had a blog I wrote around that time, you can actually see the thought progression from liberal to conservative. But I wrote this great blog about going to vote for Obama on election day with my daughter and how America was, finally coming together. And all of that idealism lasted until about January of 2009. Now, being an insider, I had worked with an organization called American Rights at Work. American Rights at Work is a pro-union organization funded by SEIU whose main job is to pass card check. Hilda Solis was the treasurer of American Rights at Work. So when I saw her picked as labor secretary, I knew why. It was to pass card check. Kathleen Sebelius, when she was the governor of Kansas, she took the state of Kansas plane to D.C. to accept an award from Andy Stern and American Rights at Work and to plot how she was going to pass universal health care. Leon Panetta has obvious Acorn and socialist ties. So I started to think, if everyone around you is corrupt, how can you be a good guy? I realized that Obama wasn't, basically being railroaded by these socialists. He was a socialist. And that's when I said, that's when I said, you know what, I'm through, I'm done, and not to offend anyone, I didn't want to be a Republican, but I knew I didn't want to be a liberal anymore, so I became an ex-liberal. And I'm going to talk about this a little later with Alice Lanahan at our session, but that's where the power of social media comes in. Because like I said, everyone around me had always been a leftist. In my house, the two pictures on the wall were Jesus and JFK. We were very staunch Democrats. All my friends were Democrats. So thinking that you guys would think I was funny and actually we'd have anything in common was very foreign to me. And that's where Twitter and Facebook came in. I'm sitting there and I'm writing about Acorn and corruption, and I'm realizing people are retweeting my stuff and they're putting LOL, and I'm like, they think I'm funny? I didn't, It was so weird and alien to me, but I started making relationships. I started working with Smart Girl Politics and the Patriot Caucus, and there were just so many different groups that came out in 2009 that I got involved with, and I started realizing that all of that programming and racism was coming from the left. Thank you. And just to wrap up, I just want to let you know that's something that most people don't see. When you change your thought process, that's when that happens. When I spoke with the C-PAC, on the C-PAC main stage in 2010, I came home and on my blog were all these comments, and one of them, this guy said, I never saw a coon at a Klan party until I saw you on the C-PAC stage. So they're calling you racist, but this is the type of stuff they're writing to me because I changed my mind, because I think differently than them. So that's why I want to let you know we do have the fight of our lives ahead of us, because they are worried about other people that are coming out of the fold, that are waking up and realizing that this hope and change was a bill of goods that they sold us that was kind of bad. So we have an opportunity now that we have never had before, because in the black community, they are ready for someone to come in and tell them the truth, but they're whispering it to each other. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for coming out today.